All right, you ready? Ready to go?
Yep.
All right. Welcome to Creativity, the podcast where art and engineering collide. I'm Jeremy Cook, your host for this podcast, and today we have a special guest named Ezra Spencer from the Mixed Signal. Ezra makes all kinds of crazy stuff with Arduino and the MIDI protocol, which is a musical-based protocol. Basically, he'll pump in some sort of signal from a keyboard or whatever else, and then it'll actuate some crazy device, some sort of robotic sound machine. Um, it's basically what we'll do. We'll talk about Ezra's inventions to begin with, kind of a little bit about him. And then after that, after we have a little coffee break, then we will go over how you can do it yourself. So, Ezra, how are you doing today, or tonight, I should say?
I'm doing great, Jeremy. Really glad to be on here and talking to you. One of the big things I like about this hobby and just in general is reaching out to people and getting to meet new creators. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, well, my pleasure. I guess what do you do for a job? I guess you're an electrical engineer, right?
Yeah. So my day job is I'm an electrical engineer. I do a lot of work with PCB design, a little bit of programming, a little bit of scripting. Kind of a jack of all trades, really. I work at a small company, and that kind of forces you to be sort of a utility player. But yeah, it's kind of a cool gig. It gets me exposure to all sorts of different things during the day and things that kind of spill over into my hobbies.
Yeah, definitely. So, how big of a company do you work for? Can you tell us who it is, or would you like to keep that private?
It's no one you've heard of. Small company. We've got somewhere around 10 employees.
Oh, okay, that's awesome. It's kind of a nice thing. I mean, it's a good and a bad thing when you work for a small company. Like you said, you can do a little bit of everything, but at the same time, I guess you're responsible. You're very responsible for certain things too. I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. When you have a team that small, you end up doing a lot of things that get allocated to other departments or that sort of thing, and now it's up to you to do because there's only so many people there. And some of those are fun, some of those are just things that you have to do during the day. But in general, it pushes you. You have to learn new things, regardless of how you do it. So
Yeah,
small
yeah,
companies.
absolutely. So I guess so that's your job, and then what's your musical background exactly?
Yeah, so in terms of musical background, I've been an off and on guitar player for about the last 10 years or so. Started off, kind of in high school, just kind of playing around a little bit. And, as you kind of learn things and this goes kind of beyond musicianship or anything, but as you kind of learn things, sometimes you get bogged down and you don't feel motivated, that sort of thing. And uh, I felt that way at times with the guitar, which is I think where kind of this hobby has come in, and we'll get into that in maybe more detail later. But yeah, my background's in guitar playing, and that was kind of a one-trick pony on that instrument for a while, and then started doing other things basically.
Sure, sure. So just electric guitar, or you play ukulele or bass guitar or anything like that, or just strictly?
Uh, Not much. I have a ukulele. I've kind of plinked around on that a little bit. Yeah, I haven't really done much with bass or anything like that. Um, but yeah, pretty much guitar, and then as of recently, keyboard,
Okay.
and that's sort of tied in with the MIDI hobby, if you will.
Yeah, okay. So how did you get into I guess how'd you get into Arduino first of all? Is that
Yeah, so I was exposed to that probably around early years of college or so, and it was just kind of. I mean, it is a great learning tool. I mean, it's the sort of thing that if you have no experience doing anything with microcontrollers or programming, um, I find it's very accessible to kind of start getting your hands dirty. And so, yeah, I got started, playing around with Arduinos. Yeah, probably early years of college, and then it's cool because you can you're not just sort of relegated to a realm of kind of beginner things or relegated to a certain realm of projects with the Arduino. There's sort of a lot of ways you can kind of get in deeper or explore different avenues and that's really one of the cool things about it, is it leaves a lot of things accessible to you, even if you've had no experience before with, say, MIDI or serial protocols or anything like that. And it really leaves those things exposed to you, so that you don't have to go and do a lot of the low-level stuff of having to write your own drivers and that sort of thing. There's a lot of great libraries out there and people who've done work on it. And so I find that it's I like to consider myself as a jack of all trades, and it's a great platform for that, because there's so many people doing so many different things with it. You can just there's a whole wealth of knowledge you can kind of pull from, and you don't have to be an expert to really get started in.
Yeah, I would entirely agree with that. I mean, it's kind of maybe it's not easy for somebody at first, but for me, it's like you can blink an LED. It's trivial at this point, and it's, I imagine as a tour beginner, it's easy to jump in, but then there's still so much I'm learning. I mean, every day I learn something new, and like, when am I gonna know? When am I gonna be competent at this? And arguably, I could say I am, but compared to some people, I'm nowhere near that. So
Same, by the way, and that goes for music. That goes for microcontrollers, engineering in general. There's always someone who's going to be really more in depth on any particular subject, and it's good to try to draw from that knowledge when you can.
yeah. Well, but I mean, it's cool that you can jump into it as a beginner. I mean, I guess I think of like maybe an analogy to soccer or something. I mean, anybody can, if you can kick a ball, you can play soccer, but you're not whoever the soccer star is of today. I don't even know, but
Neymar. Yeah.
But
Sure.
yeah, but I guess that led you into the MIDI protocol, and you basically morphing those two, correct? Is that, I guess, which came first, the Arduino or the MIDI knowledge?
I guess sort of Arduino. I had done kind of a few smaller projects with it, without really kind of getting into it. I did a shoot. This was a while back. I did sort of one of those synchronized Christmas lights with Arduino, and kind of hard programmed a few songs that it would actually work with, and that was kind of fun. But I never really took it beyond that. And at the time, I kind of saw it as sort of as a beginner platform, and you can't do much with it, and that sort of thing. All the sort of typical knocks maybe that people give it for, frankly, in my opinion, not great reasons. But it didn't interest me. I didn't see kind of all the other applications for it. All the other ways that it can sort of shortcut your ability to prototype something. So you want to make a robot, go for it. Yeah.
So when you say that with the Christmas lights, do you mean you actually programmed the lights with MIDI over Arduino, or just the Arduino by itself?
No, this is just the Arduino by itself.
Okay.
Yeah, sort of hard programmed. Just a few like joy to the world, type things, and
Sure,
made
sure.
different lights to turn on. Nothing too extravagant, I think. And that was kind of my first experience with it, and kind of shied away from it. And my career
Okay.
took me kind of other places, and yeah. Anyway,
Sure.
um,
Well, before we get into some of the crazy stuff that you've done with it, what exactly is MIDI? I know that stands for what? Musical instrument device instrument or something?
interface.
Interface. Okay.
Yeah. So musical instrument, digital interface, and it's essentially a protocol for connecting different devices. It started off early '80s. The advent of the microprocessor in the '70s really kind of changed the game in a lot of fields. But in music, some of the synthesizer companies were really kind of they saw the ability to connect with each other. And so you had Roland and Korg and a few other synthesizer companies that really saw a benefit in sort of being able to connect and then have a standard protocol for interfacing. So they got on the ball relatively early, early '80s. They were starting to pump out synthesizers that had microprocessors in them, and so they came up with this protocol, MIDI, that it's been extremely versatile, right? It's one of those things that's kind of survived for 40 years or so here, before even having to go to MIDI 2.0, which is coming up. in the next few years. But it's it's sort of a versatile protocol.
Okay, and I guess it only made sense that Arduino would take that and be able to use it. I mean, it's basically I imagine there's a library or something you can load up and it just takes care of that for you. Is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a few different ways to go, and I had to kind of look into all this when I first got started in this a little over a year ago.
Okay. Well,
You can go. Oh, go ahead.
I
Yeah.
guess before we get into that too much, I mean, why don't we talk about some of the stuff that you've made with it before we, let our listeners know that it's worth getting into before we, really get into
Sure.
nuts and bolts. If that sounds good.
Yeah. So this thing right here, it's probably tough to get kind of fully in camera,
So yeah,
but this,
you've brought actually one of
yeah,
your instruments with you. This is a slide whistle, is that right?
right, yeah, this is a slide whistle. It's an Arduino controlled slide whistle. Yeah, and for those listening, we should probably be narrating what's going on here.
Sure.
Um, it's essentially a long PVC pipe, and connected to one end is a fan that blows into it. And on the other end, I have an Arduino basically that's controlling a stepper motor, and there's a rack and pinion system used to sort of drive a piston in and out.
Okay, so in other words, you've got a pinion gear that makes a rack with basically like an unrolled gear, right? That pushes something in and out. Basically, takes a rotary actuator and turns it into a linear actuator. Is that accurate?
That's absolutely right. Yeah, you
Okay.
have a motor that spins round and round, and that controls. It's a good way to put it. It's an unrolled gear basically that moves the system kind of left and right to change notes.
Okay. And then that basically your Arduino, it's getting a MIDI signal of some sort, takes the rack and pushes it in or out to actuate the notes. Is that
That's
correct?
right. Yeah, yeah. So the what I'm doing is actually using my computer to send over signals to the Arduino Due in this case. The Arduino Due is sort of converting those MIDI messages into a position on the stepper motor. So stepper motors, for those who don't know, they're motors that you sort of give them a number of steps, and they'll faithfully execute that number of steps and kind of go to a certain position. And so the Arduino basically says, all right, give me a message. Okay, I'm going to convert that to a number of steps, and we're going to move the slide that far.
Okay, so basically I guess you would give that a signal from a keyboard or maybe a digital audio workstation. Is that
That's
correct?
right. Both in this case. Yeah, so I've actually got it hooked up right now into a digital audio workstation. And so the output of that that DAW, digital audio workstation, is the Arduino Due. And the input into that system is this little guy.
Oh, okay.
So this is a
So what you're holding up is a keyboard. So what you do is you program in the notes with the keyboard, and then it saves it on the computer, and then a computer pumps it into the Arduino Due. Is that correct?
Yeah, but it's kind of a constant sort of steady flow. I have it configured right now to basically be passed through. So the computer's not really doing much except kind of connecting the two devices.
Okay.
But
Could,
you
could, could you
can.
could you hook up the
But
keyboard directly to the Arduino or not? Or does the
I
computer
have
have to
config-
be in
yeah, the
there?
way I have it configured right now, no. You definitely can,
Okay.
especially if you have. Yeah. So there are ways to do that if you want to go directly into the Arduino. I like using a digital audio workstation because I can also do pre-recorded tracks and have those play. And in fact, I probably could have set up another instrument here, but you can have one instrument playing on one track and then be, kind of improvising on another if you really want to.
Oh, that'd be
Um,
sweet. Um,
yeah. So soon. Yeah. Stay tuned. Yeah. Um,
so basically all this the note comes in from the keyboard and or the digital audio workstation, goes to the Due, it pushes the slide in and out to basically change the I guess the chamber's volume. Is that correct? So then the pitch goes up and down.
yep.
So
That's all absolutely correct. Yep.
okay, well can you play it for us? That sounds awesome.
Sure. Yeah. Let me turn on the fan here.
Okay. So basically you got a fan pumping in here. Whoa.
Oh, is that coming in at all or
Yeah,
no?
oh yeah, I can definitely hear it. It's maybe I guess I should put like a yeah, you're quite loud actually. Yeah, we should maybe turn that off. Whoa, that sounds crazy.
All right, yeah, we'll shut it off for right
We
now.
might, maybe we
Um,
can maybe after the coffee break we can have a little more demo of that. But we wouldn't want to hurt our listeners' ears too much. Um,
sure.
it but yeah, I mean what you've got in there basically looks like a piece of PVC pipe with a plunger that goes in and out under Arduino control. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's accurate.
And
Yep.
instead of you, I guess, blowing into it, it's got a fan. I guess maybe a PC fan pumping into it.
Yeah, so this is actually a it's a fan that you'd find maybe on like a 3D printer. I actually made a mod of my 3D printer that used one of these. It's called a centrifugal fan, centrifugal blower fan,
Okay.
and
Oh,
it
okay.
forces kind of more air in than like a typical PC fan might.
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I feel like the stuff you do is quite ingenious. The way you've put stuff together, but at the same time, this is, that's like actually a pretty simple device. That's interesting. I mean,
Oh
I
yeah.
guess the power of Arduino. I guess.
Yeah, you know you can do a lot with kind of simple, readily available things. You know, this is I have a stepper motor that you'd find on a 3D printer. I have a fan here that you'd find on a 3D printer. Even the linear rod, or sorry, the rod that's here, it's actually a linear rail that you'd find on a 3D printer.
Okay.
And they're all, fairly well cost reduced things that, you can get pretty much anywhere. And I like, having designs that incorporate that. It's nothing, there's no rocket surgery here, right?
Sure. So what else have you built? I know you had a tone wheel, correct? And can you describe that?
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of these things just come from researching instruments and trying to figure out what's behind them. And in the case of the tone wheel, I'd found so what a tone wheel is it's essentially a magnetic gear shaped thing, and the teeth of the gear move past a pickup. So if you think of maybe like an electric guitar, you have strings that basically vibrate past a guitar pickup, and that's essentially a coil with a bunch of magnets in it that can pick up changes to the magnetic field. So instead of a string vibrating, what you have is a gear basically that spins really fast, and the teeth of the gear, how quickly they move past that pickup determines the frequency that kind of gets played out of the system.
Okay.
Um,
And
mhm.
that's stepper control, correct? So basically the same thing, right? You pump in the music from your keyboard slash DAW or DAW, I guess you pronounce it. I don't even know, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you pump it in, you pump in the signals to Arduino, and then it spins up this a stepper, however fast it wants to go, right? Is that, and then it creates a note, right? Is that
That's right. Yep.
okay?
Yep. So you kind of determine, how quickly you need to move the stepper in order to get the right, RPMs basically, and that's kind of what determines the note there. Yeah.
Nice. And then you had another one. It was what a kalimba, I believe. Is that right? Where
That's right. Yeah.
you were varying the length of the thing that you pluck, right? Is that I think that's right.
That's absolutely right. Yeah. So it's actually very similar in design to the slide whistle, except instead of a slide going in and out, it's the length of what's called a tine, basically like a bicycle spoke. If you want to
Okay.
think of having a bicycle spoke and plucking that could be a tine if it's only bound on one end.
Right.
Uh,
So I guess if you were to relate it to a guitar, it would be what was it the bridge? I guess like the thing that I guess goes over it and it vibrates.
yeah, yeah.
Is that-
No, that's right. Yeah. So the length of that it's determined by like a bridge piece,
Okay.
and if you change the length of the bridge, you change the frequency of the note.
Okay.
So you change the note basically. Yeah.
And I guess you've done a couple other instruments like that. I mean, other crazy inventions, probably some that you never even put on YouTube or anything, right? I'm sure you've had all kinds of stuff that was, half done at this point, I assume, if you're anything like me
Oh,
at
there's
least.
there's so much that's half done. Yeah. I've got a guitar amp project, guitar pedals, and all sorts of other things that aren't even necessarily MIDI related. And I've also got a few other kind of MIDI ideas that I want to get out there at some point here too. Drums, right? I've got a bunch of instruments that you can basically play with a keyboard. I play guitar and got to have some drums in here somewhere. So that's kind of on the to-do list here too.
Oh yeah, I feel like that's something that's it's something that's crossed my mind over and over too. So I don't know. I guess what I'm kind of getting at is it seems like that you can make just about anything that you come up. I mean, maybe not anything, but I mean, you could make a MIDI controlled trombone if you wanted to, just with the right actuators and stuff, right? With
Yeah.
Arduino actuators, the MIDI protocol, yada yada yada. I mean, you can do. I mean, the sky's the limit. I guess is that right?
Yeah, yeah, I'd say so.
Nice.
There's just so much you can do with such a relatively simple kind of set of tools. Really, it's microcontrollers you can get anywhere. Relatively cheap 3D printer, and there's a lot you can do.
Nice. Well, now that we've, I guess, hyped it up so much, why don't we take a little coffee break? Or I guess it's a little late for coffee these days, but we'll take a coffee break and we'll come back and we'll talk about how, you know, you listening, you could do this fairly easily, I guess, or at least at least we'll get you started on it. Does that sound good?
Sounds good to me.
All right. Well, we'll be back shortly. Hey, Jeremy Cook here, and hopefully you're enjoying your coffee break as we do every show. I'd like to give a shout out to our top 5 Patreons. That's Brian Moses, Pat Regan, Positive Waves, Old School DIY, that's at GFC62, and Stephen Booker. Thanks so much for supporting us. If you'd like to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/The Creativity Podcast. We've got all kinds of different support levels, and also, if you want to talk about actual sponsorship, like if you're a company or whatever else, you can just email me at hi@jeremyscook.com or info@jeremyscook.com, whatever sounds better to you. So, hope you're having a good listen so far, and we'll get you back to the show. All right, well, we're back. I've had, I guess, my water actually. You didn't even have anything to drink whatsoever, so I guess
That's right.
that's fine. We just call it a coffee break as a bit of a what do you call it? Literary device, I guess. Is that the
Right,
term?
right. I took a break so you could have coffee, or everyone else could too.
Yeah, you can have
Yeah,
coffee, if you're driving to work or you're, doing whatever you do in the morning or at night. Whenever you happen to listen to this,
that's
you had a
right.
coffee break. So
Take,
anyway,
take, take a good shot of espresso. There you go. Yeah. Um,
yeah. So getting back into things, I basically promise you that, after we gave you a little bit of a reason why you might want to use MIDI and Arduino, we'd get into some of the more details of the thing. Um, looking at some of your videos, Ezra, I saw that your video was named. Let's see, it said MIDI over USB, W with the Arduino Due, and then easy in all caps. Is that accurate, or is that a bit of uh, what's the word? Exaggerate. Is that an accurate title? Is it really that easy?
I think it is. And maybe there should be like an asterisk on that. It's easy if you've kind of done anything on Arduino before. How about that?
So could you say
Um,
it's so easy a mechanical engineer can do it? Is that a
I I think so. Yeah,
okay?
yeah. It depends on the mechanical engineer. No, it's definitely something that if you've done a little bit of programming, I think just about anyone can kind of get into it.
Okay, yeah. That my degree's in mechanical, so I figure a little self-deprecation, I guess.
Sure.
Um, anyway, so I guess if you wanted to go ahead and make an instrument, like say a simple drum pad or something like that, what would you start out with? What's like the
Um,
first step?
Yeah, so drum pads a good example. So you got to figure out if you're dealing kind of with input or output, if you will. Is what you're making going to control other sounds, or is it going to be controlled by something else? And so most of the things I've made, they're instruments. They're things that are controlled by something else. And so you use kind of a certain well, you think about things a certain way if it's an input or an output, basically. Um, and in the case of like a drum pad, you probably are trying to feed that into like a digital audio workstation, something that'll take, you pressing on a pad or hitting a pad with a drumstick and throwing that into a computer for you to be able to do something with sonically, right?
Okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So the Arduino could translate those taps into inputs for the computer. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay. I,
And
I guess what I
mhm.
was thinking, maybe a drum pad isn't the right word, but let's just say I had a keyboard and I wanted to press one button, press one key down over and over, and then goes to the due, and then and by the way, I had no idea how that was pronounced. So I thought it was do or something. It's DUE, Arduino DUE, and
I
I think where you're why you use this is it's because it's got a native USB port and then a programming port, right? So that's
that's right.
the cool thing about it. So just to get that out of the way, but
Yeah, absolutely.
let's just say you wanted to go from you press a key, goes to the due, and then it goes to say an actuator that just hits a drum. Is that? I mean, that's got to be like the most
That's
basic
very
thing.
feasible. That's something I actually want to do here pretty soon. Yeah, you could, and there's a whole bunch of you can get down to the level of the very specific set of keys that Roland designed for doing certain drum types, right? If I press this key, it's a tom, yada yada yada. You can get down into that level where you're really trying to stick to the MIDI spec, or I just want to hit a thing and make it make a sound. You can do it kind of at either level. It's all completely in your control. And so you kind of take a step back and figure out what you want to accomplish with it. And for me, I think a very simple thing to do would be, anytime I press middle C, I want to have like a drumstick hit a thing, right? I think that'd be kind of cool, or some other key, and then maybe a different drumstick hits like a hi-hat, right? Um,
Absolutely.
you, you, you can definitely have that level of control just with the Arduino Due, and so it's all kind of there. All the tools are there to be able to do that.
Okay, so you would load on a certain library to that? Is that
Yeah,
what library would that be?
yeah. So to do that on the Arduino Due in particular, there's a library called MIDI USB, which you can find on GitHub, and there's also links to it on the Arduino site as well.
Okay, and
Um,
I assume there's a bunch of examples that would show you something similar. I guess, or at least
that,
something.
that's right. Yeah. There's a lot of great kind of example code there, and it goes kind of both directions, right? There's example code for if you want to try to get data into your digital audio workstation, or if you want to get data out of it. And you have either way. You can kind of go either way with that.
Oh, awesome! So the basically you could make like a switch, like say a couple arcade buttons go through your due, and then it would program in. It would act like a keyboard, and you'd hear it on your headphones. Is that right?
Um, yeah, and you can do it a few different ways. You can do it all through the digital audio workstation, or you could even plug in, using some of the timers and tone functions on the Due. You can have the Due itself producing the sound. There's a lot of freedom there. If you want to essentially have the computer and your DAW, doing everything, you can do it that way, or you can put most of the functionality onto the Arduino or whatever platform you choose. I like the Due. It's got a lot of accessible input and output pins, I/O pins, which is great if you're trying to do a whole lot of things with a whole lot of different instruments. I've only got one plugged in right now, but I've had 3 instruments plugged into one system. There's also other platforms that make this process very, very straightforward. Teensy is another one. I've got a Teensy 3.6 that I've got actually running what I call an optical tone wheel, or optical tone wheel organ. That one's actually running on the Teensy right now. I just wanted to kind of try it out. And it's actually pretty straightforward to get going, and they've got great libraries on their site too. So
Oh yeah,
um,
the Teensy is an amazing board. I mean, what the new one, what the 4.0 runs at 600 megahertz, right? Is that anyway? It's just the capabilities of it.
it's something really great. Yeah, I think the 3.6 is like 180 megahertz. These are like serious processors, right? They've got Cortex M4s, I think, for the 3 series, and they're pretty serious. And the Arduino Due's got a pretty good processor on it too. You can do a whole lot with it. There's a lot of resources there. If you wanted to make if you want to make a synth all in one on the Arduino Due with 8 different voices, I think that's feasible. And there's a lot you can do with the resources that are there.
So when we're talking about Arduino, I mean, we're talking about that in the most, I guess, generic sense, not in a bad way, but Arduino. I mean, I assume you could do it with an ESP8266. I mean, you could probably, or maybe not. I don't know. Is that? I mean, probably anything you could do with
Yeah,
it. I guess.
I'm a bit less familiar with that platform. If it's got if it has sort of some accessibility of like native USB or I mean, even if not, even if it has a sort of an intermediary, if you will, controller that converts USB to serial, there are ways to do that. So a lot of the platforms or kind of beginner level platforms that have native USB ports on them will support this MIDI over USB protocol and be really great to sort of interface with your PC.
Okay. And
Yeah,
I guess that brings up another thing. I mean, basically, MIDI USB is the library you want to use, but
that's right. Yeah.
that brings up a good point. I mean, I guess classic MIDI, what is with like a five pin connector, but or six or something, but
Yeah,
you don't have to use that anymore. It literally just plugs in via USB, right?
right. And it's kind of a use case thing, right? If you're in a situation where if you've got an instrument with a 5-pin connector, well, you want to go from that 5-pin connector sometimes to another 5-pin connector, right? So you can certainly do that with things like shields. SparkFun, for example, has got a pretty great Arduino MIDI shield that has the connector and the opto isolator that you need. Part of the sort of standard MIDI spec is you have to have an opto isolator.
And that's how
Kind of keeps
that's so the
yeah
two instruments don't shock each other. Basically, is that right?
yeah it helps avoid some of the crosstalk issues and also helps avoid you from getting shocked if you've got an instrument 30 yards away and another one 30 yards away and you could potentially have noise problems, but you could also have like a difference in grounds that could be a huge problem for someone in the middle futzing with cables.
Oh, sure.
Um,
Well, I was thinking
so
about equipment, but I guess you too.
well, yeah, just in general, it provides there's a little bit of an isolation in terms of safety, but also in terms of performance, really.
Sure. Okay. Let me think. I guess just thinking from my perspective now, being a bit of a keyboard noob. I mean, my son's got a keyboard that we bought, and I'm pretty sure it has a MIDI out. Now, if you want to do like a MIDI output, will it still play notes on it on the keyboard when it's outputting MIDI, or is it kind of like a phone jack where you plug it in and no longer it's playing over the speakers, or is that
Yeah,
keyboard dependent?
I think yeah, I think it depends on the device a little bit. My piano will both it'll actually have its speaker active if you want to be kind of hearing it out the speaker of the actual piano. So not the little keyboard I've been playing with here, but um, it'll actually play out whatever note you're playing as well as send over the MIDI message. So I think it depends a little bit on the instrument and how it's configured.
Okay, but I mean, if you wanted to play with MIDI over a keyboard over Arduino Due, I mean, you could probably find a cheapo keyboard on Amazon, and you'd pump the. I mean, it's not an expensive hobby to get into. At this point, I would
No,
assume.
yeah, that's exactly what I did. This little thing cost about $20.
Okay.
The keyboard that I've been kind of using here, it's
Yeah.
yeah,
What you were
very,
holding
very
up,
very easy to get into.
what you were holding up, what is it, a Kai or something? It looked like it had about 20 keys on it.
That's right. It's an Akai, yeah, 2-octave keyboard. So yeah, 24 keys, I guess.
Okay.
It's a 20,
Yeah.
25 maybe because there's a C there. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
Well,
um,
it says 25 on it actually. So
there you go.
I
25 keys.
guess
So
that's
well,
what it
yeah,
was. Um,
good detective work there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Um,
Well, that's what
yeah.
happens when you're facing the other side of the of
Of
the
the
video
camera, right?
screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. I guess on the other side of that, as far as I guess it's pronounced DAW, digital audio workstation software. Is there like a
DAW,
DAW
DAW. Yeah,
DAW?
I've heard it both ways, and I'm no expert here, by the way.
Okay, yeah,
Um,
yeah, I don't know. There's so many things I mispronounced. Like tons of people's names, whatever. And they'll say, "Oh no, my name's actually one of our guests over and over. I call him Pat Reagan, and he's like, no, Jeremy, my name's Pat Regan." All that being said, is there like a free piece of DAW software you can use or paid even? I mean, we don't have to be too
sure. Yeah. So I use LMMS, which is it's free software. I think it's even multi-platform. You can probably use it on Linux as well as Windows. Um, it gets the job done. I can connect to multiple instruments at once. It pretty much serves as a good MIDI pipeline. I can import MIDI files, right? So there's a standard MIDI file format if you want to export your work, or make it something that you could play on a different computer.
Okay.
So it imports that okay, and yeah, it's not bad for getting started with this.
Okay. And it's I guess
I'm sure you can.
guess it's freeware, not freeware, open source, I guess.
Yeah, I believe it's open source. It is
Okay.
free, as in gratis. But I think it's also open source.
Okay. So LMMX, and that stands for
Uh,
let's make
oh,
massive extreme music. Is that
S at the end there. So we got to
oh
think of a different
S
acronym. Let's see. Yeah,
LMMS LMMS. Let's make massive sequencers patterns.
I love it. Massive sequencers, massive synthesizers. It's yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's probably does stand for synthesizer. What actually? What does it stand for? Yeah.
I actually don't know. Yeah, yeah. I've
Okay.
never learned what that acronym actually means,
Okay.
and I use it all the time.
Yeah.
Um,
What does I2C stand for? Or
uh,
DIN?
uh, that one I sort of know. Yeah,
Okay.
I2C. It was originally IIC, and it's like interface interconnector. It's integrated. I don't know. And so I don't really know, but I know the I2 is actually II.
Okay. Well, hey, that's good. I just
Before
I don't
my
know.
time. Before my time. Okay.
I always think it's funny how much we use these acronyms, and it's like so many of them have almost transcended the state of an acronym. Now it just is it is what it is, I guess.
Right.
So
Yeah.
um,
Yep.
yeah, so I guess that's where you go to get started. Now, what about you? What's next for you? What are you working on currently?
So currently, I'm working on. Well, I guess one of the other facets of my hobby. I like stop motion. So I have a stop motion rig kind of set up on my 3D printer. That I guess sort of a time lapse. That
Oh,
it's a
yeah,
layer by layer stop motion.
you do some
Yeah.
really great stuff on your channel, by the way. That's some cool
Oh,
stuff.
thanks.
So,
Yeah. It's something I've always loved, and it's something I like making. Right. It's one of those things you just. I wonder if I can do this, and sure enough, you start going down that road, and it's like, okay, now I wonder if I can do this better. And it's one of those things that I like kind of learning about and seeing how people set their systems up and do it. And it's also just it's fun. It's fun to make, fun to watch it, or at least I hope it's fun to watch. Um, but yeah, so right now I'm actually working on a complete stop motion video for op amp basics. I started a series about sort of the basics of op amps, and started off with just kind of an introduction and sort of some high level intuition about what an operational amplifier is. And I'm going to get you going kind of into more detail, talking about the specifics of ideal op amps, and then getting into in the later video into non-idealities and applications, and the approach there is just to I had a tough time learning this subject in school, and I think part of it was I had a tough time kind of visualizing a lot of these things, and in my view, what stop motion gives you is kind of the ability to make some of those visualizations, and so I hope the video is useful. That's kind of where I'm coming from. I hope I make something that's useful, but it's certainly fun to make regardless, and hope it's fun to watch.
oh yeah, yeah. No, I mean, is that going to be on the mixed signal channel? I mean, it's a little. That's not really about music, I guess. It's a kind of a bit of a deviation
Yeah,
from that.
it kind of is, yeah, and I'm actually kind of on the fence about going a few different ways with that. Like I've got so I like doing all the music stuff. I like the stop motion stuff. It sometimes converges, sometimes doesn't. There may be a point where I actually just kind of split the channel in half and say this is all stuff dedicated to the music side of things, and then this is all stuff kind of more about teaching. Teaching people how to use MIDI, teaching people how to use Arduino, teaching people how to use op amps, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at right now. That may change in a couple of weeks for all I know, but that's kind of where my head's at right now. Is I'm being pulled a few different directions, and I may end up kind of making a new channel for some of this stuff.
No, I
But the
understand. I understand that. It feels like, with me and the stuff I do, I'm really all over the place as far as what I
oh
want to
yeah,
build, and I feel
Yeah.
like really the way to grow a YouTube channel is probably just to narrow down on one thing, and that would just bore me. I just find that so
Yeah.
boring. But
Right.
it is what it is. I feel like you have to kind of choose whether you're doing it for your entertainment or I don't know. That's a whole different can of worms, I guess.
Yeah, it's tough, right? It's like it's a thing that I enjoy doing. Do you want to share it with more people? That's one potential way to look at it, or do you want to just make what you care to make, right? And I kind of feel the same way as you. One week I want to do one thing, one week I want to do another, and I kind of don't care. Well,
Yeah.
I do care what people think who view the stuff. I hope it's at least useful or fun, but at the same time, I want to do something, I'm going to do it, right? And
Absolutely.
so I think you feel the same way. And it's. I mean, I personally enjoy it. I like your channel, and I like
Oh,
seeing
well,
all
thank you.
the different projects you come up with, But I completely get it if week to week it's not something that people are into
Oh yeah.
in terms of my channel.
Well, no, I mean as far as your channel, I mean, the production quality is great. Do you do the like the background, the intro music and stuff? Is that yours, or did you get that?
Yeah, I started off just doing all my own music, and that became a bit burdensome. So I've started to use some of the sort of the free tunes that are part of the YouTube library. They've
Sure.
got kind of a like if you hear the same tune over and over in YouTube videos, a lot of times it's like one of the like highly ranked ones from that standard YouTube library.
Oh yeah.
Um,
It yeah, I get it, and I use them sometimes, but it does sometimes like, oh, okay, I've heard that about 10 times, and
yeah,
but
totally.
but listen though, I look at your channel, and I think, man, I it's got to blow up. I mean, you've got what 300 something subscribers. I mean, everybody listening to this needs to check you out and subscribe because it's really good stuff, man. I think yeah, I think where can they find you actually since we're bringing
Well,
that up?
hey, I really appreciate it. Yeah, so you can find me on YouTube. The channel's name is the Mixed Signal, and really appreciate the shout out here and just getting the opportunity to talk with you. But you can find me on YouTube, the Mixed Signal. I'm also on social media. My handle is usually the Signal Mixed, so kind of switch those two words
Right.
around. Um, but yeah, you can find me on Instagram or Twitter. I tend to check both. Project updates or some of the builds that I'm working on. I tend to kind of do some early release stuff on that, or hey, I've got a little tune I want to knock out. I'll sometimes just do that and share that on social media that maybe necessarily won't make it onto YouTube or whatnot.
Right. No, I get that. So, but yeah, that's cool. Now it's just funny. It's one of those things I look at it, I'm like, why are people, why, sometimes I'll see these channels like, why are people watching my channel, not his channel? So, but I mean, watch them both, I guess. But, it is, yeah, it's just interesting. So,
Well, for those watching this who aren't subscribed to Jeremy's channel, check his channel out. He's it's yeah, it's one of those things. I could probably be better about self promotion or whatnot, but it just comes down to I think part of it is that whole thing we were just talking about. I tend to do a bunch of different random things that maybe don't appeal to everyone at the same time, and so I think part of it's just the algorithm. I think part of it's just part of it's that I'm relatively new to this. I've been doing this for only about a year or so. So it takes time to come up with things and make them and get people interested. But
yeah.
by all means, I really appreciate the shout outs and
Oh, well,
yeah,
my
thank
pleasure.
you.
I really mean that. I mean, it's funny though. It's like, okay, he's got like 300 subscribers, but this video has like 10,000 views, so something's not quite. But yeah, because people like it, I guess. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah, and it's funny what makes it through too. It's the MIDI over USB one. I made that video with absolutely no intention of it really being seen much, right? It was going to be sort of a very specific. If you're looking to do one particular thing, then maybe that'll be helpful. But somehow that ended up being my most popular video, and I have no explanation for this.
yeah.
um,
Well, I guess people are looking for it. Yeah, I did something about Raspberry Pi cooling using a cooling fan on it, and that's it's funny. It didn't do it did okay to begin with, but then like I just noticed like the search traffic's like continuously Like, oh, that's cool. So,
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah. Funny how that works, right?
yeah, yeah.
It's
Well, I guess I wanted to kind of show you and everybody else. I'm actually working on something. I'll put out a video pretty soon on this. But this podcast has actually been recorded with my new sound deadening material that I made with wood. So I'll do a little. I guess I'll see if I can get the video over there. Uh, there we go. So I'll put a video on that eventually. But basically, what it is, it's a bunch of one by one wood that I cut up at 90 degrees, so it makes some sort of crazy like geometric pattern. Looks like kind of like an old school video game or something, like something off Star Fox or something like that. Um, as far as how well it works, I mean, you can see it looks pretty good, but as far as how well it works, I got to be honest, it doesn't work that well. So spoiler, uh, if I say will it work, not that well. So, but it looks cool. So it's got that going for it. Now I guess
you
guess
should put it in the background.
well yeah that's
It looks awesome.
oh well thank you yeah maybe I should I've got yeah in the background I've got a couple of whiteboards up that it's my top secret plans for different projects, and then I got a let's see got a picture of Fort Jefferson off the coast of Florida, which I believe it's US's United States least visited national park, from what I understand, and it's a hexagon. So shout out to former guest Pocket 83. I know he's a big fan of that shape. Um, yeah, so yeah, I guess at this point, I feel like we've just about covered everything we wanted to, and are rambling a little bit. So, yeah, anything else you want to talk about, or should we go ahead and close out the show?
No, I think that's about it. I really appreciate being on here.
Okay, yeah, well, I
So thank you. Yeah.
appreciate you coming on. You could find Ezra at some combination of the mixed signal or the signal mix, and I'm on Twitter at Jeremy S Cook, or you can find me on my YouTube channel, Jeremy S Cook, I guess, or here on the Creativity Podcast. So we'll go ahead and close out the show, and then after that's done, turn down your, be prepared, because Ezra's going to play a little concert with his slide whistle, which may or may not blow up your speakers. So just be prepared. Have the speakers ready to rip off your head, or rip off. Have the headphones ready to come off your head, or just turn it down, or I guess you could just go to the next episode if you really want to. So thanks so much for listening. This is Jeremy S. Cook signing off. All right. So yeah, we're still recording, but we'll cut it like we wanted to. So yeah. So this is as Ezra Spencer in concert.
So I don't know how much of a concert this is going to be. It's going to be kind of more me just playing random notes here on a undersized keyboard. Well, there you
All
go.
right. That's Ezra Spitzer, everyone. Yeah, give him a hand at home. Maybe you'll hear him on Spotify or whatever, wherever. It's, all right.
Hopefully playing with a bigger and better keyboard here.
Bigger and better
Um,
keyboard. Was it a strange machine repeating beats and thumping bass for those of you that like Ben Folds? So, all right. See ya. If you'd like to support the show, you can go to create. If you'd like to support the show, you can go to Patreon. If you'd like to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/thecreativitypodcast.